Welcome to Scare Corner. What follows is drawn from the record. In the winter of 1883, the town of Briar Hollow rested quietly along the banks of a narrow, slow-moving river. It was a settlement shaped by habit and repetition. The same shop windows lit at dusk, the same church bells ringing each Sunday morning, the same paths worn into the earth by decades of footsteps. Life in Briar Hollow moved predictably, and predictability was considered a virtue. The town's routines left little room for surprise, until one morning when a man failed to appear where he was always expected to be. His name was Elias Rowe. Rowe was 42 years old, unmarried, and had served as Briar Hollow's schoolmaster for nearly 15 years. He arrived in the town as a younger man, quiet and formally educated, with letters of recommendation that described him as steady, reliable, and reserved. Over time, he became a fixed presence. Children learned their letters under his supervision. Parents trusted his discipline. Town records listed his name year after year without interruption. To most residents, Elias Rowe was unremarkable in appearance. Of average height, dressed plainly, his hair kept neat, his posture upright. He spoke carefully, choosing his words with precision. He did not raise his voice. He did not linger in conversation. But he was dependable. And in a town like Briar Hollow, dependability carried weight. On Monday, January 15th, the schoolhouse doors remained closed. At first, the delay caused little concern. Winter weather often slowed travel. Illness was common during the colder months. Children gathered outside the building, stamping their feet against the cold. Parents waited nearby, expecting the doors to open at any moment. They did not. By midday, the air had grown uneasy. Elias Rowe had never missed a day of teaching, not once in 15 years, not for illness, not for weather. A neighbor was sent to check on him. Rowe's residence sat less than a mile from the schoolhouse. A modest wooden home, well maintained, with no fence and little decoration. The door was closed, not locked. Inside, the house appeared unchanged. A kettle sat cold upon the stove, its contents long since untouched. His coat hung neatly by the door. His boots were placed beneath the bed, aligned with care. Nothing appeared disturbed. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken furniture, no overturned objects. No note had been left behind, no bags packed, no indication that Rowe had planned to travel. Elias Rowe had simply vanished. The town constable, Samuel Pritchard, began his inquiry that same afternoon. Pritchard was an experienced local official, but his tools were limited by the time. There were no photographs to compare, no fingerprints to collect, no centralized records to consult, only observation, memory, and testimony. Neighbors were questioned. Most accounts were nearly identical. Rowe kept to himself. He followed a strict routine. He walked the same routes through town each day. He greeted others politely, but rarely engaged in extended conversation. One woman recalled seeing him near the riverbank the evening before his disappearance. He appeared calm, she said, unhurried. Another resident believed she heard footsteps outside her window after nightfall, but she could not say whose they were, nor whether they were unusual. Nothing rose to the level of evidence. As the days passed, the river became the focus of attention. Its waters were shallow that season, the current slow and steady. Men searched along its banks. Others waded carefully through the colder shallows. No body was found. Search parties moved through the surrounding woods. They called Rowe's name. They examined paths and clearings. Again, Nothing. By the end of the week, the disappearance dominated every conversation in Briar Hollow. With facts in short supply, speculation filled the space they left behind. Some believed Elias Rowe had chosen to leave, that he had grown weary of routine, that he longed for a different life beyond the town's narrow boundaries. But others found the idea difficult to accept. Rowe had withdrawn no money. He had made no known arrangements. He had left behind everything he owned. And in 1883, leaving without preparation was rarely accidental. More troubling theories soon followed. There were quiet whispers of disagreements with parents, suggestions that Rowe's discipline had been too severe, that his manner had been too distant. One man claimed the schoolmaster had angered the wrong family. Another implied that the river had claimed more than it revealed, yet no accusation could be proven. Constable Pritchard recorded everything. He documented the position of objects within Rowe's home, the last confirmed sighting, the complete absence of physical evidence. In his written report, he described the disappearance as unnatural in its completeness. But without proof of a crime, his authority went no further. Weeks passed. Winter tightened its hold on Briar Hollow. The school reopened under a temporary instructor. Lessons resumed. Schedules returned. Life, reluctantly, moved forward. But Elias Rowe was not forgotten. His name lingered in conversation, in quiet prayers, in moments of unease that settled without warning. In early March, a fisherman discovered something along the river's edge, a leather satchel partially buried in silt. Inside were several school papers, marked in Elias Rowe's handwriting. The ink had blurred with water damage, but the name remained unmistakable. The satchel showed no signs of tearing, no blood, no indication of violence, only absence. The discovery renewed the investigation. Once again, the river was searched. Once again, the woods were examined. Nothing more was found. No additional belongings surfaced. No new witnesses came forward. By summer, the case was quietly closed. No declaration of death was issued. No charges were filed. Elias Rowe remained both legally and practically missing. Years later, a former student recalled something unusual. She remembered Rowe speaking once about the fear of being known only by habit, about how a person could exist fully yet leave no lasting trace behind. At the time, the words seemed ordinary. In hindsight, they carried weight. Whether Elias Rowe left by choice, met with an unseen accident, or encountered something darker was never determined. What remains is the silence he left behind. A locked schoolhouse, an untouched coat, a town reminded of how fragile routine can be. In Briar Hollow, the river still moves quietly past its banks, and Elias Rowe's disappearance remains unsolved. Here, on Scare Corner, we tell only what can be known and leave the rest in silence. Thank you for listening.